mentioned something about other people, and I want to just touch base on this. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I don't think I snore. My husband doesn't snore, but there are those people that snore, but then they have a partner that, they love dearly, but they wake them up at night. Like how or what, how can somebody get beyond that? Or there's also, sleep apnea, things like that too. Like, I'm not sure if we were going to leave that to a later section or if you want to address those things now.
So this is a tricky one, right? First of all, if people are happy sleeping in the room with other people, great. If they sleep, great. Second of all, if they have no choice, then fair enough, right? And so that's all good. What I think is interesting, though, is people who sleep poorly because they sleep in a room with someone else have an option and then choose not to. And that's where, like, the first 45 minutes of this recording was probably, necessary, because it's saying just how important that issue is. But I think a big blockage for people considering sleeping separately, sleeping on their own, is that it shows that there is some, a couple of things. If you're sleeping with a child or a pet, you may feel like they're dependent on you, right? They need you. And so, you don't want to upset them. I'm not a parent, so I'm not going to tell you how to address that. But I would consider, given the amount that a child kind of copies what you do, like they're almost more impacted by copying you than they are by how you treat them. So if a lack of sleep is impacting you in all these negative ways, and they're going to model that in their nervous system, then that's something worth considering, long term. But again, I can't give advice about, how to address it. But in terms of the partner thing, I can. So there's this idea. So the other reason that a person might stay sleeping in the room with someone else, even though it keeps waking them up, is because they're like, this is necessary for our relationship to be healthy. All the research that I've done indicates that throughout most of our history, the only reason that we slept with other people is because we had to. Initially, before we had buildings and all the rest of it, again, it would be for obvious survival things, safety, warmth, right? Generally, with most herds of animals, right, like whoever's in the middle of the herd is the safest. No one wants to be alone. No one wants to be on the outside because that's the most dangerous place to be. So fair enough, right? That's our evolutionary background, a lot of it. And then, but, then more recently, throughout most of our history, in fact, still the case for a lot of places, we didn't have any choice, right? There's still a lot of places in the world where there's like one room to a whole family and they all sleep in the same bed because they have to. And fair enough, right? So there's a lot of doing it because they have to. But then if we look throughout most of our history, the very few people who didn't have to, which would be like the monarchy and the aristocracy, who rightly or wrongly had way more resources than everyone else, they didn't sleep together. They may have over periods occasionally, right, for whatever reason, bonding and sex, but it was not I must do it, otherwise there's a problem with a relationship kind of thing. It was I'll do it because for a reason, right? So and now we're in this, and again, not everyone, probably not the majority of the world, but probably the majority of people watching this, I imagine, would be people who have means, and to some degree, right? They probably have like a room in their house that they could sleep in that no one is already sleeping in, all that kind of stuff. But there's just a psychological block to doing it. And half of it may be genuine, right? So the truth is, as I said, a lot of us feel safer when we're with someone else. And that's the oxytocin thing, oxytocin reducing cortisol. And so if you genuinely feel worse sleeping on your own than with someone else because it's more important for you to be safe than undisturbed, then fair enough. Then, you could ask yourself, is there other ways I could feel safe despite being alone? But the answer may be no. And this, again, depends on how we're wired. Genetically, we are wired differently. And you could argue that those same aristocracy and monarchy and stuff, people who, who were happy sleeping alone, they were also has a genetic tendency to be a little bit more, well, whatever, not as connected to other humans, let's say. So totally fair enough. But try it. But if you know that you do feel better sleeping alone and you still don't do it because you're worried about what it means for your relationship, something like that, then I would say that's worth questioning, right? There is nothing to say that means there's any issue in the relationship. My wife and I have not slept in the same room, again, except for occasions, for many years. We've been married 12 years now. We're happy with that. It was actually her who initiated it because she was a very light sleeper. She had, issues. And she, and so she started sleeping on her own, and great, So for her, she felt better that way. And I agreed. Now, again, it may be an issue of you feel better sleeping on your own, but your partner doesn't. So that's more of a tricky thing again. I'm not a relationship therapist, right? You can maybe work that out with them as to how that works. Maybe half the time one of you gets their way, half the time the other. But yeah, it's a bit of a minefield, Krissy.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, the art of compromise and conversation.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Rejuvenate podcast. If you want to watch the full episode that came from, just click on the link above. Or if you just want to watch our latest video, then click the link below. And make sure that you subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thank you.